Your life is only 4,000 weeks long if you're lucky. That's about 80 years. Think about it. Every day you grind through endless to-do lists, chase bigger goals, and try to squeeze every second out of your busy schedule. But for what? In 4,000 weeks, Oliver Burkeman flips the script on everything we think we know about productivity and time management. Instead of promising hacks, quick fixes, or ways to do more in less time, Burkeman delivers something far more powerful: the freedom that comes from accepting your limits. This book isn't about cramming more into your day. It's about letting go of the impossible expectation that you'll ever have it all under control. It's about embracing the messy, unpredictable, and finite nature of life, and learning to focus on what truly matters instead of what the world demands from you. In this video from Detailed Book Summaries, we'll break down the biggest lessons from 4,000 weeks, show you why productivity culture often makes us more miserable, and share practical insights on how to reclaim your time and your sanity. If you're tired of feeling overwhelmed, behind, and burned out, and you're ready to live with more purpose and intention, this summary is for you. So hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to join us as we explore how to make the most of the precious 4,000 weeks we've been given. Chapter 1: The Limit That Liberates. Let's start with the number 4,000 weeks. That's the average human lifespan, roughly 80 years. Just 4,000 weeks to do everything. To chase dreams, build relationships, answer emails, raise children, scroll endlessly, seek meaning, stay healthy, stay employed, and maybe, just maybe, find time to breathe. 4,000. That's not just a number. It's a shockwave. It's the ceiling we rarely dare to look at. Because for most of us, time feels infinite right up until the moment it doesn't. But Oliver Burkeman wants you to look. And not just look, rethink everything you thought you knew about time. This isn't another productivity book promising to help you do more in less time, or finally conquer your to-do list. In fact, it's the opposite. 4,000 weeks is a rebellion. A gentle, profound rebellion against the cult of efficiency that's left so many of us feeling inadequate, overwhelmed, and constantly behind. Burkeman opens with a confession most time management gurus would never admit. You will never be on top of everything. The to-do list will never be finished. The inbox will always refill. There will always be more dreams than days. And that, he says, is not a failure. It's the condition of being alive. Because we are finite. Radically, terrifyingly, gloriously finite. From the beginning, Burkeman confronts the unspoken promise behind every productivity hack: that if you just get it right, just optimize enough, you can finally unlock a life of calm control, where everything runs smoothly and nothing slips through the cracks. But that life, it doesn't exist, and chasing it only makes things worse. It leads to what Burkeman calls the efficiency trap. The more efficient you get, the more work you attract. The more you accomplish, the more people expect from you. The faster you move, the faster the treadmill spins. You don't escape the chaos. You just become better at hiding inside it. And here's the deeper tragedy. By trying to do everything, we end up doing nothing that truly matters. But what if we inverted the question? What if time wasn't a resource to master, but a gift to surrender to? That's the radical invitation of 4,000 weeks. Burkeman wants you to see time not as an enemy, or even as a problem to solve, but as a canvas. A boundary that creates meaning. A reminder that you don't have to do everything. You can't. You were never supposed to. And buried inside that truth is freedom. Because once you stop pretending you're infinite, once you accept your cosmic smallness, you finally get to choose. Not everything, but something. You get to say, these are the few things that matter to me. This is where I'll spend my short, dazzling time. It's terrifying. And it's beautiful. Because real life doesn't begin when you finally get organized. It begins when you stop waiting to feel in control, and start showing up fully for the little slice of eternity you've been given. That's the first truth Burkeman lays down. Not a technique, not a life hack, but a mirror. He holds it up and says, you have 4,000 weeks. What will you do with them, not in theory but in reality? What will you choose to love, to let go of, to attend to, not someday but now? Because someday is running out. And maybe, just maybe, that's where the real clarity begins. Chapter 2. The Efficiency Trap. When getting more done makes life worse. We've all felt it, that moment when you finally catch up. The inbox is cleared. The calendar has white space. The tasks are all checked off. It feels like a small miracle, a taste of control in a world that never stops asking for more. But then it happens again. The emails refill. The calendar bloats. The to-do list regenerates like a hydra. You finish one task and two more sprout in its place. And slowly you realize, you're never actually done. You're just momentarily between storms. Oliver Burkeman calls this the efficiency trap. And it's the second great illusion of modern time management. It whispers a lie. That if you just become more productive, if you just tweak your system enough, you'll finally escape the chaos. You'll finally win time. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Efficiency doesn't save time. Creates more work. The better you are at answering emails, the more emails people send you. The faster you do your job, the more your boss, or your brain throws on your plate. Every shortcut becomes an invitation for new obligations. And soon you're not living, you're managing. You've become efficient at not living your actual life. Burkeman pushes us to ask a brutal question. Why are we trying so hard to get everything done in the first place? What are we hoping will happen once we finally catch up? We all have some vague fantasy answer. Maybe then I'll relax. Maybe then I'll take that trip. Maybe then I'll finally be present with my kids or start painting or just sleep without guilt. But if that were true, if we were really using productivity to make space for life, why does life feel smaller the more productive we become? The trap isn't just about volume. It's about postponement. We don't delay tasks. We delay living. We convince ourselves that now is for hustling, and someday is for being fully human. But the someday never comes. And in the process, our most meaningful desires get perpetually deferred. We tell ourselves, I just need to get through this week. But that week becomes this month, then this year, then this decade. And so Burkeman argues something radical. Stop trying to clear the decks. Stop fantasizing about a future where everything is finally done, and the real living can begin. That version of the future does not exist. It never has, because you are not a machine, and time is not a slot to fill. It's the medium in which your one and only life unfolds, and the only way to use it well is to stop trying to use it perfectly. So what's the alternative? Burkeman doesn't say give up. He says choose. Not everything, just a few things. Choose what matters, knowing full well you'll never get to everything else. Accept the discomfort of unfinished work. Let some people down. Disappoint your inbox. And in that discomfort, you'll find something strange, relief. The pressure to do it all lifts. The endless game of catch-up ends. You stop living for an imaginary finish line and start noticing what's right in front of you. The real, messy, mortal life that's been waiting all along. Because here's the paradox at the heart of this chapter. You only begin to use time well when you stop trying to control it. The moment you give up on squeezing everything in, you finally have space to drop in. To your creativity, your relationships, your ordinary, extraordinary, vanishing life. And that's not failure. That's freedom. Chapter 3. The Illusion of Control. Why Mastering Time is a Fantasy. We crave control. Not just over our schedules, but over life itself. Deep down, we want the reassurance that if we plan well enough, hustle hard enough, and stay on top of everything, we'll be safe. We'll be calm. We'll be ready. This is the subtle promise behind every calendar app, every color-coded system, every morning routine that borders on ritual. If you just manage your time right, you can manage your entire existence. But Oliver Burkeman, with disarming clarity, shatters that illusion. Because time isn't a substance you can pour into containers or bend to your will. It doesn't care about your plans. It moves on regardless of your effort. And the more you try to tame it, turn it into something predictable and neat, the more chaotic it seems to become. The very idea of time management implies something dangerous. That time is a thing separate from you. That it's out there waiting to be wrestled into shape. But time isn't out there. Time is you. It's your attention, your choices, your breath. And to try and master, it is to try and master the ocean by organizing its waves. Burkeman makes this point through a sharp analogy. We think we're building dams to control the river of time, when really we're just stacking pebbles in a current we can't stop. And the more we pretend otherwise, the more anxious and overwhelmed we become. The truth is, life is inherently uncertain. You don't know what tomorrow brings. You don't know how long you'll live. You can't predict how others will act, how markets will swing, or how your own heart might change. And yet, we try to plan as if we do. As if a carefully structured week can protect us from the raw unpredictability of being human. But here's the twist Burkeman offers. Not as a warning but as an invitation. What if you stopped trying to feel in control? What if you accepted that life is uncertain? That you'll never have total clarity or complete preparedness? That your limited time is not a flaw to be fixed, but a frame within which meaning can emerge? Because when you stop trying to conquer time, you start participating in it. You start showing up, not with rigid expectations but with presence. You stop resenting interruptions and start seeing them as reality knocking. You drop the fantasy of total efficiency and rediscover the messy, miraculous rhythm of being alive. This isn't about giving up. It's about waking up. Waking up to the fact that you don't control time. You never did. But you do control something far more powerful: how you meet it. Do you meet it with fear, always running behind? Do you meet it with arrogance, always trying to dominate? Or can you meet it with humility and courage? Ready to engage with the mystery, not solve it? This chapter doesn't give you a tool or a template. It gives you something more valuable: permission to stop pretending. Permission to let go of the myth that you'll ever be fully in charge. Permission to make peace with the fact that time isn't yours to rule, but it is yours to inhabit. And that might be the most empowering truth of all. Because once you stop chasing control, you're finally free to live. Not someday, not after the plan works out, but now. Exactly as you are. With the time you have. Chapter 4. The joy of missing out. What you must choose what to neglect. There's a quiet panic that lives just beneath the surface of modern life. It's the sense that no matter how hard you try, you're missing something. Some opportunity. Some conversation. Some version of yourself that you could be, if only you had a little more time. And so we chase. We multitask. We cram our calendars with plans. We try to fit it all in. Because the fear isn't just that we're running out of time. It's that we're running out of chances to be everything. But Oliver Burkeman stops us in our tracks. He makes a radical, almost shocking claim in this chapter. You will have to miss out. Not just once. Not just temporarily. But permanently. And that's not a tragedy. It's the beginning of real, meaningful freedom. He calls this the joy of missing out. Not as a catchy counter to FOMO, but as a deeply philosophical shift in how we relate to time. Because here's the brutal arithmetic. You have 4,000 weeks. Even if you live twice as long, it wouldn't be enough to pursue every path, say yes to every invitation, or become every version of yourself you imagine. There will always be unread books, untraveled roads, unanswered messages, unfinished dreams. And that isn't failure. That's being finite. Burkeman's challenge isn't to do more with less. It's to redefine success entirely. To stop measuring your worth by how much you squeeze into your days, and start measuring it by how honestly you choose what not to do. He invites you to think about time like a sculptor thinks about stone. Not as something to fill, but as something to subtract. What you leave out is what shapes your life. The courage to say no is what makes space for what matters. But that kind of choosing, it's terrifying. Because every yes means 1,000 no's. Every commitment closes doors. Every decision is a kind of grief. For the lives you'll never live, the roads you'll never take. And we hate grief. We want openness. We want potential. But if you spend your life trying to keep every option open, you end up living in none of them. You become scattered, split, perpetually distracted, always at the edge of your own life. So Burkeman asks, what if you flip the script? What if you stop trying to be unlimited? What if you saw missing out not as a curse but as a design feature? Because when you accept that you can't do it all, something shifts. You stop chasing and start choosing. You stop hoping time will expand and start using what's already in your hands. You begin to invest, fully, in the people, projects, and moments that make your short life feel rich. Not full but deep. And that's where joy lives. Not in the illusion of infinite possibility, but in presence. In knowing this moment matters because you've chosen it. Not because it's perfect, but because you've let 100 others go. That's the paradox at the heart of Chapter 4. Freedom doesn't come from keeping your options open. Comes from closing the right ones. So maybe the point of time isn't to fit more in, but to feel more alive in what you do choose. And maybe the most beautiful life isn't the one with the most accomplishments, It's the one with the most clarity. Chapter 5. The Power of Letting Things Go Unfinished. We've been taught from childhood that leaving things unfinished is a sign of weakness. You start something, you finish it. You commit, you follow through. You don't quit halfway, and you don't leave projects hanging. That's how responsible people live, right? But what if that idea, so ingrained it feels like law, is quietly destroying your relationship with time? Oliver Burkeman thinks so. In Chapter 5, he dares to say what few time management experts ever would. You will leave most things unfinished. And that is not just inevitable, it's necessary. Because the moment you truly grasp how limited your time is, the idea of finishing everything starts to unravel. There isn't enough time. There never was. And the more you struggle to complete it all, every project, every ambition, every goal, the more your life becomes a performance of anxiety rather than a practice of purpose. Burkeman introduces us to something quietly revolutionary, the discipline of conscious abandonment. This isn't about laziness or procrastination. It's about choosing with clarity and courage which pursuits no longer serve the life you actually want to live. It's about recognizing that every time you say yes, you're borrowing time from something else. And eventually the debt comes due. So why do we keep trying to do it all? Part of it is fear. Fear that giving up means we've failed. Fear that someone else will finish what we couldn't. Fear that we'll miss out on potential or fall behind or disappoint people we care about. But Burkeman shows us that clinging to unfinished things out of fear only drags us further from the present. And it's the present, he reminds us, where life actually happens. He tells the story of unfinished books. How many people keep unread books on their shelves out of guilt? Not because they still want to read them, but because they once thought they would. And in that guilt, they let a dead version of the past control the present. But here's the insight that flips the script. You are not the same person who made those commitments. You've changed. Your values have evolved. Your available time has narrowed. Why should your current self be enslaved to decisions made by a past version of you, under different circumstances? Burkeman calls us to practice the art of settling, not in the way culture criticizes, but in the truest sense, settling in. Committing to the life you're actually living, not the imagined life you once thought you might live someday. And this is where things get deeply human. Because when you stop measuring your life by how many boxes you've checked, and start measuring it by how honestly you're engaging with the few things that matter, you discover something rare: peace. Not because you finally finished everything, but because you finally stopped trying to. So yes, there will be books you don't finish, goals you abandon, relationships you let go, ideas you leave unexplored. And in each letting go, there's a small kind of grief, but there's also relief. And in that relief, space opens up for depth, for attention, for love, for being alive right now, rather than endlessly preparing to be alive later. Burkeman leaves us with this unshakable truth. You are always choosing. Whether consciously or not, your time is always being spent. And to choose wisely, you must also choose what to release. Not everything unfinished is a failure. Some things are just no longer yours to carry. And learning to set them down, that might be the most powerful act of time management there is. Chapter 6. Distraction is a way of avoiding reality. We like to think distraction is a modern problem. That if it weren't for smartphones, social media, notifications, and endless Netflix scrolls, we'd finally be focused, present, and productive. We imagine that attention is something tech stole from us, and that if we just unplugged for long enough, we'd reclaim it. But Oliver Burkeman disagrees. In this chapter, he doesn't just talk about the things that distract us, he looks deeper at why we keep reaching for them in the first place. Because distraction, he says, isn't new. It's ancient. The impulse to look away, to avoid the hard thing, the quiet moment, the existential weight of living a limited life, has always been part of being human. Distraction isn't something that happens to us, it's something we choose. And we choose it again and again because it protects us from something we're terrified to face. The reality of our finitude. When we sit in silence, when we're not scrolling or refreshing or planning or optimizing, a strange thing happens. We start to feel the discomfort of being mortal. We remember we're here for a brief flicker of time, that we can't do everything, that we'll die before many things are finished, that much of life is out of our control. And so, rather than feel that, rather than face that, we reach for the phone. We open another tab. We start organizing things that don't matter just to avoid the one thing that does. Distraction, Burkeman writes, is a defense mechanism. It protects us from the emotional weight of choosing what to do with a finite life. This explains why even our efforts to be productive can be distractions in disguise. Why we spend entire days cleaning inboxes, tweaking task managers, and color-coding calendars, all while postponing the truly important work, the kind that requires presence, vulnerability, or commitment. Because that kind of work reminds us we're alive. And being alive is terrifying. Burkeman doesn't shame us for this. In fact, he offers deep compassion. He reminds us that facing the truth of our limitations is hard, that there's no hack for existential courage. But he also insists that until we stop running from the discomfort of being finite, we will never feel peace in our days. So what do? We stop treating distraction like the enemy and start seeing it as a clue, a signal, a whisper from within that says, something here feels hard to face. Rather than trying to eliminate distraction through discipline alone, Burkeman suggests we build the capacity to stay. Stay with the discomfort. Stay with the silence. Stay with the task that might not go perfectly. Stay with the reality that you won't get to do everything. Because presence isn't the result of clearing all distractions. It's the result of choosing to be with what is, even when it's messy, incomplete, or uncertain. Burkeman invites us to practice this, not with grand gestures but in small daily choices. Resist the twitch to open a new tab. Let the moment be boring. Let the work be imperfect. Let the silence stretch out and say what it wants to say. He reminds us, your life doesn't begin once you've eliminated all distractions. It begins the moment you stop using them to run away. Because underneath every distraction is the beating heart of what matters most. Your fears, your hopes, your finite, beautiful, and irreplaceable life. And the only way to live it fully is to stop turning away. Chapter 7. The Seduction of Control and the Chaos of Real Life. We've all done it. That hopeful moment when you look at your calendar, your to-do list, your notebook filled with color-coded goals, and you think, if I just organize it right this time, I'll finally get everything under control. It's a seductive thought. A high. The promise of order, clarity, and calm. But as Oliver Burkeman makes painfully clear in this chapter, that feeling is a fantasy, and chasing it will exhaust you. At the root of it is our obsession with control, not just over time but over life itself. Somewhere deep inside, many of us believe that if we just plan well enough, work hard enough, optimize ruthlessly enough, we can finally eliminate uncertainty. No more surprises. No more overwhelm. No more chaos. But Burkeman invites us to step into a brutal but liberating truth. You will never get everything under control. Not your inbox. Not your schedule. Not the people around you. Not even your own emotions. Because life isn't a project to be managed. It's a living thing. Unpredictable. Messy. Full of interruptions, shifts, breakdowns, and surprises. And the harder you try to systematize and perfect it, the more brittle your life becomes, because real life doesn't fit into clean boxes. Burkeman tells the story of how we fall into what he calls the efficiency trap. The better we get at squeezing tasks into our day, the more tasks arrive to fill the space. The more emails we reply to, the more emails we get. The more efficiently we work, the more we're expected to do. It never ends. Why? Because efficiency doesn't create peace. It creates appetite. Your boss, your clients, the world around you, none of them are waiting for you to be done. They're waiting for you to do more. And unless you decide what enough looks like, someone else will decide it for you. This is where Burkeman challenges us most. He asks us to drop the illusion that one day we'll catch up. There is no catching up. There is only choosing. So instead of asking, how can I get everything done? He encourages a better question. What should I leave undone in order to give my full attention to what actually matters? Because once you stop fantasizing about control, you can start living with intention. This doesn't mean chaos rules your life. It means you accept the chaos that's already there. You stop resisting it. You make peace with the fact that some tasks won't get done. Some people will be disappointed. Some outcomes will remain unknown. And in that acceptance, you find a strange kind of freedom. You start letting go of perfection. You begin showing up for your real life, not your imagined one. You stop treating your day like a problem to be solved and start treating it like a moment to be lived. This is the heart of Chapter 7. You don't need more control. You need more courage. Courage to let things remain unfinished. Courage to disappoint others rather than betray yourself. Courage to admit that your time is finite, and to live as if that's true. Because only when you surrender the fantasy of control can you experience the relief of presence. Not perfect, not efficient, but real. And that's the only life worth showing up for. Chapter 8. Cosmic Insignificance Therapy, the Freedom of Not Mattering. We spend most of our lives trying to matter. We hustle to be productive, to be recognized, to make an impact. We want our work to mean something. We want our name to outlast us. We want our time on earth to count. That desire is deeply human and deeply exhausting. In Chapter 8, Oliver Burkeman makes a radical suggestion, one that feels uncomfortable at first but quickly becomes liberating. He invites us into what he calls cosmic insignificance therapy. And yes, it's exactly what it sounds like. It starts with this humbling truth. In the grand scheme of things, you don't matter all that much. Think about it. You are one of billions of people living on a small planet orbiting a small star, in a quiet corner of a galaxy that's one among hundreds of billions. Your name, your to-do list, your legacy, they will vanish. Your ambitions, no matter how noble, will be forgotten. Even the greatest empires, inventions, and revolutions will be dust. First, that might feel crushing. But stay with it. Because when you lean into the insignificance of your existence, not as a cynic but as a realist, something incredible happens. You become free. Free from the burden of trying to justify every second of your life. Free from the pressure to make it count in some grand historical sense. Free from the illusion that your worth depends on your productivity or legacy. Burkeman explains that much of our anxiety comes from trying to make our limited time feel important enough. We believe we have to earn our right to exist by achieving, proving, performing. But when you accept your smallness, you stop chasing that impossible validation. You realize you don't have to be extraordinary. You just have to be here. Living your 4,000 weeks not to change the world, but to deeply experience it. To laugh, to cry, to connect, to love, to build something maybe small, maybe temporary, but beautiful all the same. Burkeman writes, "The universe clearly doesn't require your input to continue. And while that might seem cold, it's actually warm in its implications. It means you're not carrying the weight of the cosmos on your shoulders. It means your failures aren't cosmic tragedies. Your unfinished goals aren't moral failures. Your life doesn't have to be impressive to be meaningful. You're allowed to just be alive." This is cosmic insignificance therapy. Not a rejection of meaning, but a rejection of inflated meaning. A reminder that meaning is made not in the history books, but in the tiny, ordinary moments most people miss while trying to do something more important. Burkeman doesn't want us to be nihilists. He wants us to be realists with joy. To feel, maybe for the first time, the profound relief of knowing you can stop striving to matter to the universe and start mattering to the people in front of you. To your child, to your partner, to your friend, to yourself. You are small, but in your smallness you're human. And in your humanity you are irreplaceable. So go ahead. Let the pressure to be remarkable dissolve. You don't need to change the world. You just need to be awake in it. Chapter 9. There will never be a perfect moment. We like to tell ourselves we're just waiting for the right time. Waiting to start the book. To quit the job. To take the trip. To say what needs to be said. Waiting until we feel more ready, more organized, more certain. But in Chapter 9, Oliver Burkeman pulls the curtain back on this seductive story. He calls it what it really is, a trap. Because the perfect time is a lie we tell ourselves to avoid risk, discomfort, and uncertainty. It's a mirage on the horizon, one that keeps shifting as we approach. And so we wait. We delay. We plan but never act. And slowly, silently, our 4,000 weeks slip away. Burkeman argues that behind this waiting is a fantasy of control. We believe that if we can just align everything, our mood, our energy, our calendar, the weather, our finances, the political climate, our inbox, then we can finally act without fear. But that moment never arrives. Life doesn't offer perfect conditions. It never has. And it never will. This is the hard truth at the heart of Chapter 9. If something matters, you have to begin before you're ready. Before you're sure. Before everything is neatly in place. Because readiness, Burkeman says, is often something we find on the path, not before we take the first step. He shares stories of people who waited too long, the book they never wrote, the career they never changed, the relationship they never fixed or left or deepened, not because they didn't care, but because they were waiting for the moment that never came. And yet, there's another way. The way of choosing now, this messy, inconvenient, beautiful, ordinary moment, as the place to begin. Burkeman encourages us to think about all the people who have done meaningful things not despite imperfect timing, but because they stopped waiting for perfect timing altogether. Parents raising kids while working 2 jobs. Artists painting after midnight. Entrepreneurs starting with no money. People rebuilding after grief or divorce or burnout. They didn't wait. They started in the middle of life, with all its loose ends and noisy edges. And so can we. There's a quiet invitation in this chapter. To stop rehearsing your life and start living it. Not someday. Not when it feels easier. Not when you've cleared your calendar or healed your past or figured out your 5-year plan. But now. Even with the dishes in the sink. Even with your inbox full. Even with your doubts still whispering. Because this right now is the only time you ever truly have. Burkeman writes. You'll never get the time back that you spend procrastinating on your dreams in the hope that one day, you'll be in the perfect state to pursue them. And so, he leaves us with a choice. Wait for ideal conditions, or act under real ones. It's not comfortable. It's not easy. But it is honest. And honesty more than control is what opens the door to a life that actually feels lived. Chapter 10. The joy of missing out. Why limitation is freedom. We live in a world obsessed with options. More choices. More apps. More experiences. More open doors. We scroll endlessly, not just on our screens but through our lives, terrified of closing off any possibility, afraid of choosing wrong, convinced that to commit to one thing means killing all the others. But in Chapter 10, Oliver Burkeman turns this thinking inside out. He reminds us of something we already know deep down but rarely admit. You'll miss almost everything. And that's not a tragedy, it's a feature of life. In fact, it might just be what makes life beautiful. Burkeman introduces us to a counterintuitive truth. Freedom doesn't come from keeping your options open. Comes from really choosing what to close. This runs against everything modern culture tells us. We're trained to believe that real freedom means staying uncommitted, flexible, always ready to pivot. That the ideal life is one where we can do anything, go anywhere, be anyone at any time. But that's not freedom. That's paralysis. Burkeman shows us how this illusion of infinite potential, this fear of missing out, robs us of depth, satisfaction, and presence. Because when we refuse to choose, we live nowhere fully. We're always half in, half out. Distracted. Drifting. We become tourists in our own lives, collecting moments instead of inhabiting them. And that's why Burkeman offers something radical. The joy of missing out. The joy of saying no. The joy of deciding that some things will be left undone, unseen, unexperienced on purpose. Because only then can you truly say yes to what matters most. He writes, you have to choose a few things, sacrifice everything else, and deal with the inevitable sense of loss that results. This is maturity not just in how we manage our time but in how we live. It's the wisdom of understanding that what makes something meaningful is that you chose it, while knowing full well what you were giving up. Think about it. Every meaningful relationship, every creative project, every fulfilling path, requires trade-offs. Requires saying, I will not be everywhere. I will not be everything. I will be here. That act of narrowing your focus is not a limitation to resent. It's a doorway to peace. Burkeman challenges us to stop being time tourists and start being residents in our own lives. To stop endlessly researching the next perfect plan and instead dive into the imperfect one we already have. To choose fewer goals but go deeper into them. To stop chasing the next shiny thing and grow roots where we are. Because when you pick a path, when you say no to the thousands of others, you reclaim your time as something sacred, not infinite but intentional. In a world addicted to more, the most rebellious thing you can do is embrace less and love it. Burkeman doesn't say it's easy. It means facing grief, missing out, letting others race ahead while you stay behind and focus. But he argues that this is the only way to live a life that's not just full but real. Because real freedom is not about escaping limits. It's about choosing which limits to embrace and discovering who you become on the other side. Chapter 11. Patience is a superpower, rediscovering the wisdom of slowness. In a world that moves at the speed of clicks and scrolls, slowness feels like failure. We've been conditioned to believe that if we're not racing ahead, replying instantly, multitasking efficiently, checking off endless to-dos, then we're falling behind. We equate speed with competence and slowness with laziness. In a culture of urgency, patience is almost taboo. But in Chapter 11, Oliver Burkeman invites us to consider something both ancient and radical. What if patience is the secret weapon of a meaningful life? He argues that most of our suffering, not just around time but around everything, stems from our deep resistance to how things unfold. We want life on our terms. We want results now. We want traffic to move, people to reply, dreams to deliver. And when they don't, we rage. We fidget. We flee. But what we're really running from is the discomfort of waiting, that vulnerable space between desire and fulfillment. Burkeman introduces a striking insight. Discomfort is not the enemy of meaning. It's the doorway to it. The best things in life take time. Love, mastery, healing, creation. And to engage deeply with any of them, we must surrender our addiction to instant gratification. We must learn to stay, to remain with the process, even when it's messy, ambiguous, or slow. Patience, he says, is not about passivity. It's about presence. It's the willingness to sit inside uncertainty, rather than force a resolution. It's the courage to continue even when results are not immediate. In fact, Burkeman suggests that much of our time anxiety comes from an unwillingness to be with life as it is. We try to speed past difficulty. But what if, instead of trying to accelerate through the hard parts, we slowed down to meet them? What if we treated time not as a commodity to manage, but as a landscape to explore? He draws from ancient spiritual traditions, mindfulness practices, and even cue theory. Yes, the study of lines, to show how our experience of time changes dramatically when we stop fighting it. The paradox, Burkeman says, is this: the more we rush, the more time slips through our fingers. But when we slow down, time expands. Think about those rare moments when you're fully immersed, watching a sunset, deep in conversation, lost in a book. The clock didn't stop, but you did. You stepped out of your frantic mind and into the eternal now. That's the gift of patience. It's not just about waiting longer. It's about living deeper. Burkeman doesn't pretend it's easy. In a world where everything shouts for our attention, practicing patience is an act of rebellion. But it's also the way we reclaim our lives from the tyranny of urgency. He urges us to stop trying to escape time, and instead, learn how to inhabit it. To walk, not sprint. To savor, not consume. To choose presence over productivity. And in doing so, we begin to discover the kind of time that actually feels like living. So maybe the goal isn't to speed up. Maybe the goal is to slow down enough to notice that you're already here. Already alive. Already in the moment you were waiting for. Chapter 12. The Seduction of Distraction. Why we'd rather be anywhere but here. There's something you've probably felt before, though you might not have said it aloud. It's harder than ever to simply be where you are. Even in the quietest moments, perhaps especially then, your fingers twitch toward your phone. Your mind itches for a new tab, a notification, a hit of something, anything to fill the space. In Chapter 12, Oliver Burkeman pulls us into the heart of a modern crisis. We are terrified of being undistracted. We think of distraction as a minor annoyance, a byproduct of tech, maybe poor discipline. But Burkeman insists it's far deeper. Distraction is a form of protection. It shields us from the intensity of actually facing our lives, from the weight of time passing, from the reality that our moments are limited, fleeting, and painfully real. Why do we open Twitter mid-conversation? Why do we scroll through photos while watching a film? Why do we check email while waiting in line? Because being present is confrontational. When we're fully here with no buffer, no escape, we come face to face with the truth that we are mortal, and time is slipping by. Every moment fully lived is also a moment we will never get back. And that knowledge burns just enough to make avoidance feel like relief. Burkeman argues that this is why distraction always feels good at first. It's a kind of anesthesia. It keeps the full weight of reality at arm's length. But here's the price. When we live distracted, we are never quite anywhere. We skim the surface of our lives, never touching down. Our days become blurs of activity with no real feeling of aliveness. And that deep hunger we keep trying to feed with clicks and screens, it grows. Because it was never about novelty or entertainment. It was about presence. Burkeman doesn't demonize technology. This isn't about quitting your phone or moving to a cabin in the woods. It's about seeing clearly. Distraction isn't just stealing your focus. It's stealing your experience of life. And the way out isn't to grit your teeth and focus harder. The way out is to become willing to feel what distraction protects you from. The boredom, the vulnerability, the loneliness, the wild energy of being alive in a finite body, in a finite moment, with no way of knowing what comes next. Burkeman says, to be truly present, even for a short while, is to risk becoming aware of things you'd rather not face. But only through that willingness can we find the richness that distraction cannot offer. You don't need to eliminate every alert or close every app. But maybe you can pause, breathe, stay in the silence just a little longer. Because underneath your urge to flee the moment is the part of you that deeply wants to be in it. So the next time you reach for your phone out of reflex, try this instead. Stop. Look around. Feel the moment raw and whole and real. It may sting, but it will also wake you up. And that waking is the beginning of true presence. Chapter 13, The Myth of Balance. Why getting it all right is getting in the way. We are taught to believe that the holy grail of modern life is balance. Work-life balance. Balanced meals. Balanced schedules. A perfectly calibrated day where nothing spills over, nothing overwhelms, and every aspect of your life hums in smooth, synchronized harmony. But in Chapter 13, Oliver Burkeman gently, but firmly challenges this idea. He calls it what it is, a myth, a comforting illusion, and one that, ironically, makes us more anxious, not less. Because chasing perfect balance assumes that balance is actually possible, that if we just tweak the right knobs, organize our calendars, wake up earlier, say no often enough, meditate consistently, and somehow manage our emails, our families, our friendships, our ambitions, and our sleep, then we'll arrive at a state of control. But we never do. Because life is not a spreadsheet. It's a living, unpredictable storm. And every time we try to pin it down into a neat equation, it slips through our fingers. Burkeman argues that balance is not the goal. Presence is. He asks us to let go of the fantasy that we'll someday feel caught up, that we'll finally reach that mythical point where nothing is neglected and everything is thriving. Instead, he invites us into a more honest and more freeing way of living. Choose what to neglect. On purpose. Because no matter how well you plan, you won't be able to do it all. Not in a day. Not in a week. Not in a lifetime of 4,000 weeks. Trade-offs are not a failure of your system. They are built into the structure of being human. You can have a rich creative life, or a spotless home, deep time with your kids, or total inbox zero, a thriving social circle, or solitary focus for your big project. But rarely all of them at once. So the question isn't, how do I balance everything? The real question is, what am I willing to miss out on in order to be truly alive in what I've chosen? Burkeman encourages us to reject the guilt we carry for all the things we're not doing. The books we haven't read. The messages we haven't returned. The courses we didn't take. Because every yes contains 1,000 silent no's. And that's not a sign of failure. It's a sign that you've finally begun to live intentionally. Rather than chasing balance, he suggests embracing imbalance that reflects your values. Let your time tilt toward what matters most to you. Not because it's efficient, but because it's meaningful. In this way, your life won't look balanced on the outside. It might look messy, uneven, unpredictable, but inside it will feel anchored. Anchored in what you've chosen, instead of what you're frantically trying not to drop. So, Burkeman leaves us with a paradox. The people who live most fully aren't the ones who balance it all. They're the ones who've stopped trying to. And in that surrender, they've found a kind of peace that balance never promises, and presence always delivers. Chapter 14, The Efficiency Trap. When faster means emptier. Efficiency is one of the great modern virtues. We're taught to chase it, praise it, optimize for it. A faster workflow, a quicker commute, an inbox sorted in minutes, it all feels like progress. But in Chapter 14, Oliver Burkeman delivers a sharp and startling insight. The more efficient you become, the more things you're expected to do. You don't actually feel freer, you feel more burdened. Burkeman calls this the efficiency trap, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. Every time you speed up your ability to complete tasks, the world responds. Not by giving you more space, but by giving you more tasks. Answer emails faster? Great, now people email you more. Learn to juggle 5 meetings instead of 3? Excellent. Now your calendar becomes the dumping ground for other people's emergencies. Streamline your errands, cook faster, file taxes earlier, and somehow the time you saved is instantly filled. Why? Because efficiency doesn't make time more spacious. It makes life more crowded. Burkeman points out that this pursuit of speed is grounded in a dangerous assumption: that we must clear the decks before we can live. That one day, if we just work hard enough, we'll finally get everything done. And then we'll relax, be present, start that project, take that trip, enjoy our family, breathe. But the deck's never clear. The more you race, the more life throws at you. And the more you respond to time pressure by trying to fit everything in, the more you feed the illusion that it's possible to do so. Burkeman's advice is deceptively simple and deeply freeing. Stop trying to get it all done. Instead, get the right things done and let the rest fall away. Not because they're unimportant in some grand cosmic way, but because your time is finite. For 1,000 weeks. That's the deal. And every minute you spend optimizing something that doesn't deeply matter is a minute you'll never get back. This isn't about being careless or lazy. It's about facing reality. You don't need to do more with your time. You need to be more honest about how you want to spend it. Burkeman invites you to flip the question. Instead of asking, "How can I do this faster?" ask, "Why am I doing this at all?" If the answer isn't grounded in something meaningful, something that resonates with who you are, then maybe speed isn't the answer. Maybe stopping is. He also warns that chasing efficiency can quietly strip life of its texture. When you rush through things, even the necessary ones, you flatten experience. You stop noticing beauty. You stop lingering in joy. You miss the in-between moments where real life actually lives. So rather than trying to move faster, maybe the real skill is knowing where to slow down. What if you let the dishes take longer and talked while you did them? What if you walked instead of scrolled? What if you chose 3 things that mattered each day and let the rest remain undone? In the end, Burkeman says, you don't beat the efficiency trap by winning at it. You beat it by stepping outside of it, by choosing presence over productivity, depth over speed, meaning over momentum. That's not laziness. That's wisdom. Because no matter how efficiently you live, you don't get more than 4,000 weeks. But you can decide what fills them.